Welcome to another episode of Pistons of Fury. In this episode, we're building a set of DIY subframe connectors for our 1966 Dodge Coronet station wagon. Alright, in this episode, we are building some subframe connectors for the 1966 Dodge Coronet Turbo LS Mopar wagon. And for these subframe connectors, I am using 1.5 inch by 2 inch by 1/8 inch thick tubular steel. So you can pick this up at any metal provider. I got these in 6-foot lengths, and I also picked up a scrap piece of 1/8 inch plate. So this was like $10. These things together were like $50. If I was able to find scrap versions of these instead of having them cut this new, it would have been a lot cheaper. So your mileage may vary depending on what you can find locally. But altogether, right now, without all the work and the time I'm going to put into this, this is a $60 project. So anybody can really do this. And what this does, we're aiming to tie the front subframe of the car to the rear subframe. And I'll get under there and show you guys what I'm working with. I've already cleaned up the passenger side, so that should go pretty quickly, but then I'll have to go on the other side, clean up where I'm welding, and take some measurements and cut everything to fit. So this is actually going to mimic an article that's available online. You can view it. I think it's Hot Rod Magazine did this, or one of their Carcraft, one of their brands. You can find it pretty easily. But it's homemade subframe connectors. I'm not really sure how much they cost when you buy them, but it's not going to fit as tightly as doing it yourself, so that's why we're doing it ourselves here. Yeah, so big power, long car, unibody construction. You got to have subframe connectors to keep everything straight, make sure your car doesn't twist, because the worst case would be spending a couple years building a car, lighting up the tires or going to the track one time, and then things start moving around and now you have to redo everything. So we're going to do this, handle the power, and yeah, just gonna get under the car and get started. Alright, so here's the result of the front subframe plates. Some super ugly welding. I've got a little bit more work to do here before I actually put it in, but everything's pretty secure in place. Got a little bit of cleanup. I just want to state for the record that I absolutely hate welding and grinding under the car. Even when it's up on these nice wooden cribs that I made, it's better than laying on your back, but it's not fun work with the sparks and the welding slag and falling on your legs and everything else. Not super fun, but just got to keep grinding through. So we're moving back here to the rear subframe. I've got this mostly cleaned up, but based on how the weld was performing on the front subframe, I'm going to come through here and try to get as much of this old paint and rust and stuff off of here, just because it makes the welding so much harder when it's not perfect and pristine. So yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make some more templates. We're going to box this out with some more 1/8 inch plate. That'll actually give me a better surface to weld on. So yeah, clean up and some more pattern making. update from the trenches. So everything is, I've got it kind of half welded. On the front side, I'm going to go into the car after I eat some lunch. Basically where we're at is we've got this, you saw me with the jack. I basically had to, this floor pan right here kind of protruded down. I cut some of these these are the seat brackets, and there's this little lip where the body pan joins, like front half and back half. So I had to trim that too, and basically just use the jack. I needed like another half an inch to bring this up so that it was flush. So basically that's welded in place. I've got this guy welded in place on the bottom and the outward facing side. So no more jack, structurally complete. So what I need to do now is come back in on the other side, weld that, and then I'm going to tack it to these seat brackets so I don't get any rattling or squeaking or anything like that. And I'll probably also weld it to this lip just to be sure I don't get any additional noise. But structural, looks stock, and I'm going to come in here, I'll prime that, I'll give it a nice fresh like rubberized undercoating, so it'll look pretty good. You've seen me in my welding, I'm just doing like basic stitch welding. That's for a couple reasons. Number one, some of this welding has been a little messy in terms of getting like super clean surfaces. It's just really old, or sorry, not really old. It's really hard with these old cars and getting all of that old paint and rust and undercoating and everything off. So running a continuous bead is super hard. I'm just not good enough of a welder to be able to do that. The other thing is my helmet kind of sucks, so I'm basically using the helmet. If I run a continuous bead, it will trigger and it will darken, but if I'm just doing tacks, it doesn't. And so I basically I have the helmet on, but I'm also blinking before I pull the trigger, so I'm basically just placing it, quick tack, and I'm just layering tacks for all this stuff. But I've got the settings right, it's good penetration so that the welds will be fine, they'll hold. It's just not as pretty as continuous beads. So that's what I'm up against. But this is good milestone. One side almost done. Okay, so new day, same project. Just to recap, this is where we left off at the end of the last segment, I guess. Basically got everything undercoated, so this side, the passenger side, is pretty much done. Well, it is done. Coated, protected from rust, and solid and in place. So now we're actually moving over to the other side, and the challenge on this side, everything's the same except for the parking brake cable. So I've got to remove that to make clearance so I can get in there and do what I need to do. but there's one additional step on the passenger side in that you have to cut basically 2 elongated holes to account for the angle. So the parking brake cable goes from the outside rail of the chassis of the car, kind of inboard to the inside of the frame. So it comes at a diagonal. So that's really the only thing different. Not going to film a whole lot of that, but when I get to that specific piece, I'll film that and show you guys how to do that. But for now, just got to remove this parking brake cable and get started scraping off some 60-year-old undercoating. Okay, so that's a wrap for this episode. The last thing I have to do is just poke my e-brake cable back through the opening I just made, but I'm going to wait for the undercoating to dry before I did that. So overall, took about probably 2 weekends. Second side went a lot quicker once I had the templates and once I knew where not to mess up from the first side. But you know, if you do these kind of projects, you kind of know that once you get the first side down, the second side is usually like half the time, and that was pretty much the case for this as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, throw me a like. I would love to hear what you guys think. If you've done your own Mopar subframe connectors, yeah, love to hear what you think of the result. I'm pretty pumped about it. Yeah, this should make a big difference with especially how long this car is and how big it is.
So super excited to get it back on the road. But that's it for this episode, and we'll see you guys in the next one.